Hello, and welcome to today's European SharePoint, Office 365 and Azure Community webinar, the first of a series of 6 Azure Week webinars. My name is Laura, and I'm delighted to be joined by Thomas, who will present the topic From Concept to Collaboration, Lessons Learned from Building and Monetizing SaaS Apps for Microsoft Teams. Remember to join in on the conversation about today's webinar and more on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC23. Don't forget to check out the Resource Centre. This is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars and how-to videos. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com and click the Content tab at the top. Continue your learning by joining us for the next webinar of Azure Week. Guardians of your Azure Galaxy, 10 tips to govern your Azure ecosystem, which takes place later today, Monday, July 17th from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. CEST. For full details, please check out sharepointeurope.com/register for webinars. You can now watch the European Power Platform Conference 2023 showreel video from Dublin last June. Last June, over 1,200 Power Platform professionals gathered in Dublin for the European Power Platform Conference 2023. Check out our amazing showreel video full of EPPC 23 highlights from Dublin last month. We loved hearing from our attendees and seeing everyone have a great time. This showreel is a brief extract of all the learning, development, networking, and fun that was had over this amazing 4-day event. You can register your interest for the European Power Platform Conference 2024, which is taking place in Brussels at sharepointeurope.com/European Power Platform Conference. Europe's premier Microsoft 365 and Azure Technologies Conference is taking place in Amsterdam this November 27th to 30th. At ESPC, you can access over 100 world-class speakers, over 120 expert sessions, and there is endless knowledge to gain at ESPC 23. Microsoft technologies are advancing rapidly, so stay in the know by attending ESPC to hear from the greatest on the very latest. Make time for your 2023 professional development. Get your early bird discounted tickets for ESPC 23 in Amsterdam. Join us and learn to better master Microsoft 365 and Azure at ESPC 23. Visit sharepointeurope.com to secure your tickets at this discounted price. After the webinar, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any question you might have into the questions window. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Centre, where you will be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to pass you over to our webinar presenter today, Thomas. Hello, Thomas.
Hey. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I guess you can see my screen now.
Yeah, that looks perfect.
All right. Cool. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, thanks. So yeah, welcome to my webinar today, From Concept to Collaboration, Lessons Learned from Building and Monetizing a SaaS App for Microsoft Teams. My name is Thomas. I'm a software developer at Media Lesson and a Microsoft MVP for Azure since this year. We at Media Lesson, we're a software company helping our customers with a digital transformation. So we build mostly cloud-first applications in Azure, including custom web apps, IoT scenarios, or mixed reality projects. And that means we as a company, we work on several different projects in parallel. And whenever we get a new inquiry, we need to figure out who has time to work on a new project. And so what we did back in the days was to create simply an Excel sheet where we tracked all the project commitments and all our developers, and yeah, found out that way who was available for a certain project coming in. And obviously, this is not the best user experience for both the project managers and for the developers. You have to create your timeline manually. You have to track things like holidays. Maybe you want to reuse colors for same types of projects. And so the idea came what about, or how about we create an app for this? So the requirements were pretty straightforward. We wanted to have single sign-on with our existing Azure AD user accounts that every employee has, and wanted to get the employee details from the Microsoft Graph this way. And we wanted to have a seamless integration into our daily workflow. So we quickly landed on the idea to create a Microsoft Teams app for this scenario. And this is it. So I built the app called SitePlan, which does exactly what I just described. And while building, publishing, and monetizing this app, I figured there were some takeaways that are worth sharing with you today. So you could also maybe call this session today 5 lessons learned building Microsoft Teams apps. Maybe a bit shorter than the original title. So learning number 1 is definitely use Microsoft Teams Toolkit if you're getting into Microsoft Teams app development. So what is the toolkit? It's a Visual Studio Code add-in that allows you to scaffold Microsoft Teams apps within minutes and provides you with a seamless development experience. So you create a new project, you hit F5, and the toolkit checks if you have all the required dependencies on your development machine, for example, the Node version. It creates the app registrations you need for the single sign-on to work. It starts the backend, in this case, Azure Functions locally, and it also starts the front end for your web app, which opens then Microsoft Teams, which then loads your application as an app inside Microsoft Teams or inside the Teams context. So it's a very, very fast way to get started without having to do all of the setup stuff yourself manually. There are a few very cool features. So you get boilerplate code for different types of apps, like the tabs, which are basically the normal Microsoft Teams apps you would see, for bots, for message extensions, and also outside of Teams for Office apps like Outlook. You can reuse the same app, the same code base then for these apps as well, which is really nice. As I mentioned, you get the automatic app registration and single sign-on setup, which takes away a lot of code you would have to write yourself. And it also supports different environments. So you set up your local development environment. You maybe have a QA stage and obviously production then. And it allows you to quickly configure all these stages with different app registrations and things like that. And deploy them really in a breeze. Deployment is also made very easy since you get infrastructure as code, in this case, bicep files, and DevOps pipelines for both Azure DevOps and for GitHub. So you can really easily deploy your code and your infrastructure in a hurry. And there are several very nice examples that you can look at how Microsoft has solved various problems within the Microsoft Teams space. So if you're facing some challenges, you can go through the samples and find solutions most of the times there. There are a few downsides. There's no multi-tenant support yet, which in my opinion is like the biggest downside, because this is more or less required for a proper app to be sold through the Microsoft Teams store, because you don't want to redeploy the app every time a customer wants to try it, but you want to sell it as a software as a service app, obviously. You can work around this. There's also documentation how to do this, though this is a minor issue. Also, there is some functionality hidden away, because Teams Toolkit tries to make everything as easy as possible for you. So there's also some stuff hidden away, especially during provisioning and deployment of your app. So if you want to do something that's not considered best practices by the Teams toolkit, it might get in the way more often than not. So we kind of have a my way or the highway situation here, that if we want to do it our way and not the way Microsoft like envisions it, then you might be better off in some cases without the toolkit, because it might get in the way of what you're trying to do if you want to do it another way. Lesson or learning 2 for me was probably the toughest pill to swallow, since I myself, I'm coming from Angular. And so using React is definitely the way to go for creating Microsoft Teams apps. There are several reasons for this, which I will go into detail right now. But just, yeah, having said that, in my opinion, it's actually easier to learn React if you're coming from other SPA frameworks like Angular or Vue or something like that. It's easier to learn React than to try to force Angular and their design into a Microsoft Teams and trying to make it look like a Microsoft Teams native app. So why would you use React? Well, Microsoft uses React. So that means Microsoft will support React components, all the development flows, probably for the foreseeable future. Microsoft themselves wrote the new Microsoft Teams client completely in React. So our also most of the Office applications in the browser are written in React nowadays. So you can count on that being supported in the long run. On the other hand, if you look at Blazor, for example, that was supported in the version 4 of the Teams toolkit and got dropped in version 5 without any prior information. So React is definitely here the safe bet, in my opinion. You also get really nice looking components from the Fluent 2 UI components, which are written in React. So these are ready to use components that work perfectly with the Microsoft themes theming as well. So not only does it look like a native Microsoft Teams control, but it also supports light and dark mode in this case. And also, besides the Fluent UI 2 components, you can use the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, which with version 3 also supports or has the Fluent UI 2 styles applied to them. Granted, the Graph Toolkit works for all web frameworks since these are built on web components. But again, the question is for how long will they support all of the web frameworks, or will this maybe shift again towards something that only is working great in React? And like the Microsoft Graph Toolkit also provides you with a huge amount of really great controls that allow you to directly work with entities in Microsoft Graph, like email and calendar, or it gives you people pickers, file pickers, things like that. And this works seamlessly with a single sign-on from Microsoft Teams. So you don't have to have do any kind of bootstrapping here. You just pass the token or the Teams context to the controls and you're ready to go, which is really, really nice. Learning 3 is probably not as controversial as the last one. So definitely use Azure for your backend. You do need Azure anyways, since you are you require the app registrations for single sign-on to work. So you're already in Azure regardless. So why not take advantage of it? And also Teams Toolkit supports Azure directly. So you, as I mentioned, get the bicep files to provision your infrastructure. You get the pipeline codes to deploy directly to Azure, which is makes life really easy here. And you can get started basically for free. So as long as you don't have a lot of traffic on your app, you basically don't pay anything if you're using, for example, Azure Functions with table storage for your data store, and hosting the front end within the static website feature inside Azure Blob Storage. As long as no one's using the app, you basically pay nothing here. And when the app starts getting traction, there's a very cool offering from Microsoft called Microsoft for Startups. So the Founders Hub is a way for startups to get a lot of really great services and tools for free through Microsoft and Microsoft partners. And here you can see like just a part of the offerings you get. I highlighted the Azure relevant ones. So you get up to $150,000 in Azure credits that you can spend as you wish. You can also spend them towards the Azure OpenAI service, which is like insane. And if you are planning to do anything with AI, chances are you're gonna want to use OpenAI service or OpenAI directly. So the OpenAI offering here also gives you $2,500 in credits and access to the OpenAI team, which is super valuable. And looking at the scroll bar, you can see how much more there is in terms of offerings that you can just get for free. And the bar to qualify for these are like really low. So definitely check these out. Yeah. So learning number 4 is embrace the App Store. So what do I mean by that? Going through the store process is usually a pain. Like we know this from other stores as well, Apple, Google, whatever. And it can be here as well. So why would we even bother turning a web app, which could work standalone, into a Microsoft Teams app? The thing is, Microsoft Teams already has a user base of 280 million daily active users. And also 91% of Fortune 100 companies are using Microsoft Teams. So you can be certain that there are lots and lots of huge companies that are already paying for Teams and are very able and willing to pay for tools that make their lives easier and that integrate into their workflow seamlessly. So you definitely have a huge sea of potential customers right there, basically. And also, there's very little competition currently in the Teams store, which makes it so unique, this situation. If you go to the App Store in Microsoft Teams and just scroll a bit down, after a few seconds, you already get to the end because there's just very little apps that are built for Microsoft Teams for whatever reason. So probably now is the best time to get in there and make a name for yourself or for your app before other people realize that there's like this huge potential here. Also, I mentioned the verification process can also be somewhat of a hassle. In this case, I actually look at it from another perspective. To me, it's kind of like free quality assurance. So especially if you're a small development team or maybe working alone on an app, you can submit the app and have like really a thorough testing of the app, of checking if everything works in dark mode, if it works on mobile, and you get someone who really knows the ins and outs of Microsoft Teams, and you get really great feedback on what's working and what's not. And not only that, you get the feedback as an email with a contact person, so you can directly contact someone and write with them if you have any questions, to figure out maybe solutions to an issue. So this is, in my opinion, a really valuable thing to get from the store as well. One more tip on this: you should try to submit your app as early as possible, because there are some requirements in the Partner Center, like verifying your business status and your Microsoft Partner status, that you don't want to deal with when your app is ready or when your app is done. So start the verification process early, get these things out of the way, and get also feedback from Microsoft early. And just to bring this point home, we have been featured with our app the last 2 weeks on the start page of the app of the Microsoft Teams App Store, which is really great. And just to give you some stats, we launched the app in February this year, and so like in 6 months we got over 2,000 companies trying out our app, installing it, logging in, checking out what it has to offer, and we have achieved that number with zero advertisement from our side. So this is only people finding our app in the store, looking for for an app to help them manage their projects. So lastly, and I want to make this short because I'm already, I think, a bit over time, you should really evaluate which is the right payment provider for your software as a service solution. You can sell your subscriptions directly through Microsoft, which is a bit tricky to integrate. You need to do some single sign-on stuff there, but it works. There's also some sample code. And for a lot of companies, they trust Microsoft, so they may be more willing to go that route. But you can also run the whole subscription management stuff completely separately, maybe by using Stripe, which probably has the best developer experience. But there you have then to take care of taxes in different countries yourselves, probably. And there are also services like Paddle, which then act as a merchant of record, meaning they sell your software on your behalf, basically, and they have to take care of all the tax stuff, and they just send you the money at the end of the month, obviously taking a bit of a bigger cut. But yeah, this, at least for us, was a good option. And you can also mix and match. So we actually are selling the app through Microsoft App Stores and Paddle. So the customer also has the option to pick whichever payment provider he feels more comfortable with. So this is already all the lessons I wanted to share with you today. I'm happy to take questions if you have anything. So yeah, please let me know, and thanks for your interest today.
Brilliant. Thanks, Thomas, for a great presentation. So there are a couple of questions in here, so I'll just start with the first one. So someone wants to know, are there any specific security considerations that organizations should keep in mind when developing and deploying SaaS apps on the Microsoft Teams platform using Azure?
So there are two considerations from my perspective, or like you can go 2 ways. You can either deploy an application for each tenant individually, so you then have like they have them completely separated in different tenants, different subscriptions, and also different app registrations. Or you can go the SaaS route and have one app registration that is multi-tenant supported. And there are obviously considerations regarding security that go way beyond this talk. There's a special or there's a lot of content on how to really secure your SaaS application. There are some great features, for example, in SQL Server that allow you to really secure the data access to make sure that you don't inadvertently share data from other companies, which is, I guess, the biggest security threat that you can run into. But yeah, other than that, basically all the security considerations that you would have for a normal Azure application also obviously play a role here. And if you have any questions or concerns in this regard, definitely take a look at the Microsoft startup offerings, because there you have like a budget to get paired with Azure engineers, and they are probably way more qualified to give you a detailed answer to specific questions here.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Thomas, for that. So just another question then, someone is asking, can you provide some examples of SaaS applications that have successfully enhanced productivity and collaboration within organizations?
I mean, I just go through the Microsoft App Store, and you will certainly recognize a few of the big players there. Like, for example, Monday.com, you see them always on the in some form of ads on YouTube or something like that. And they are mostly there already. So they already recognize the potential to be inside Microsoft Teams, to be inside the workflow here. So there are definitely a few great examples there, but there could be so much more.
Brilliant. And then there's just one more question. So someone is asking, could you provide more details on how organizations can achieve leveraging Azure and what benefits they can expect to gain from it?
So generally, thinking about Azure to me is the question where you come from. So if you are already in AWS, probably there's not that much that Azure will probably be offered to you that makes you shift your whole workloads to Azure. But if you're starting fresh, if you have to choose a provider, to me, or what the reason why I chose Azure was it was very easy to get into it compared to other cloud platforms, at least for me. The naming structure alone gave me bigger confidence in Azure. Also, like compared to Google Cloud, we see how Google often handles their business offerings, canceling them without any notice. So this is probably like a whole other talk why Azure would be a good starting point. So not sure I can we have the time to really dive into this today.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Thomas. So that is all the questions that I have here. So on behalf of the ESPC community, I just want to extend a big thank you again to you, Thomas, for taking the time today to carry out this webinar. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So that is the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. That is it for today, folks. Thanks again to everyone for joining us today. Take care, and we hope that you'll join us again for more learning. Bye for now.